Hey you guys, it's Amy Gretchen. Welcome back. In this video, I'm going to be showing you how I make my photo collages. The software of choice for me is Lightroom because it is so easy and quick to do in Lightroom to put together. You'll see that I'm also going to show you how you can do it in Photoshop as well. And when you compare the two side by side, you'll see that it is so much easier to do it in Lightroom. But I know not everyone has Lightroom, and I know not everyone has Photoshop, and I apologize for that. But those are the software, that's the software that I have, and that's the software that I use, and I know how to do it in that. If you have something like Photoshop Elements, definitely Photoshop will be very similar. And maybe you know the differences with like keystrokes and stuff like that within your Photoshop Elements, but I know that it's going to be very similar. So if you're not interested in seeing how I create this collage in Lightroom, which is the program that I'm in right now, then you can fast forward it, and I will put in the description below where you can fast forward on the timeline just to skip to how I work or how I create a photo collage in Photoshop. But I would encourage you to watch it in Lightroom so you can, really compare and contrast the difference between these programs. Now, I am not affiliated with Adobe in any way, but I really, really love Lightroom. If I had to choose between Lightroom and Photoshop, I might choose Lightroom, except for the fact that you cannot do text. And for that, I would need Photoshop to add text onto a photo. So I probably in that instance would have to choose Photoshop, but I love this software for organizing photos, for editing photos, for creating books, for printing. There's so many things you can do in this program. So I cannot say enough. But I'm not going to go into how to use the program or how it's set up or anything like that. Right now, what I'm going to show you is how I create my print collages. And so let's just go ahead and get started. Right now, I am in the library module. You can see up here, and if you can't see any of this this menu up here, check to see if this arrow is open or closed. So you can just open that up so that you can see this, and then you can just click on print. So we're going to come over here to the print module. So before we get started, I just want to show you, I want to show you the panel on the side here. So we have this layout style, and you can create packages, custom packages, and you can do a single image. And I always just leave it on single image because I rarely use the custom packages. Custom packages would be where you want 3x7s, 5x7s. It reminds me of getting like a school, when you get like photos like from your kids for school and you're getting like an 8x10, a 5x7, and they like lay it all out onto a sheet. That's what you would do there, but I just want to do the single image and the contact sheet. So that's what I'm going to do. So I'm just going to close this out just to save me room. Most of the time I have in the image setting zoom to fill. And what that means is my image is going to fill in all of the space that I've allotted. And I will show you that when that comes up. And I usually don't hit rotate to fit. So I'm just going to, take off that check, but that's also something I will show you what it looks like when you check on it. Now I'm just going to close this down. Now I'm going to come to layout, and this is where I spend the bulk of my time is at the layout. You can see I've got the margins, and the margins are here. So this layout, or let me click on page setup here. On this page setup, it's showing that this is a letter size. So this is an 8.5 by 11. And right now the cell size of this photo is a 4x6. So you're seeing the entire image here. And then I only got one row, one column. If you do centimeters or millimeters, you can just change it here. But since I'm American, I am inches, which is unfortunate. I wish I knew the metric system better. This check mark here is useful if you want to keep your images square. So if I click on that, you can see that it changes my image to a 4x4. If I wanted to make that a 6x6, I would just move this up the arrow up, or I could click on it and I could hit a 6, enter, and it's going to change both of them. And that's because I said that I want to keep it a square. So you can see how you can change the cell size. You can also make it go up all the way to an 8x8. So you have that option there. One thing that I want you to be aware of when you're making these layouts is you're only going to be, you use the rules or the constraints that your printer has. So if you are not able to print borderless, then you are not able to create a borderless print here. Now, it's possible that you could do a custom size if you want, and in that case, you would be able to get around it. But you can see here that in this instance, it's only letting me go up to 8 inches, and that's because my printer is got 1/4 of an inch on the side here. So let's create a 4x6 photo, and I'm going to show you, how you can just do a 4x6 photo. So I am going to check my Epson printer, this Epson PM400 series, and this is going to allow me to do a 4x6. So I'm just going to click on 4x6, and I want to do it landscape, and then I'm going to click, I think I want to come up to properties and make sure that the borderless is clicked. Now, like I said, these are the settings for my printer. So if your printer does not allow you to print borderless, you're not going to be able to check this. So I will just show you what it looks like when you say I want to do borderless. So I clicked OK and I said OK. So now I have this photo, and this is what it looks like. The cell size is 3.19 inches by 4 inches. So that's this size right here that I have going on right here. If I want it to be the entire size of the 4x6, I'm just going to toggle these over. Now, the reason why it's not going all the way to the edge is because my margins are set like this. So what I can do is just move all of these over to 0, and now I have to move my cell size up, and you can see that I've got an entire 4x6 photo, which is really great. Now, if this is borderless, so when I print it, it's going to print out borderless. Now let's go back to settings, to properties, and we'll click off borderless. So this is going to automatically add a border here, and you can see over here in the margins, it's added a border onto each side, and essentially it's an 1/8 of an inch border on each side. So if I come up here and I try to make this go all the way to the edge or make the margin 0, I cannot do it because my printer, I've already told my printer this is going to be a print with border. So I want you to keep that in mind when you are printing from Lightroom, that you either have the option, if your printer can do it, to do border or borderless, but you need to set it here in page setup and in properties. So now I'm going to just go back to borderless, and I'm just going to have to again make all these adjustments. Sometimes it can be frustrating to have to go and do all that, but what I can do here is I can make a template of it. So I could come here, I could click on I'm not sure why that's not working. Oh, because it came, sorry, this ended up on, I have 2 screens. This ended up on my other screen. So under my user templates, and you could actually do a new folder. I could bring this over and I can name it AG, hit create, and then you can see it adds another folder here. And under there, I'm just going to hit 4x6 borderless. And you'll see in a minute, like, let me click on this 4x6 here, and then I'm going to come back to the template we just made, and you can see that it created that. Now, if I come up to page setup, actually, I'll do that in a minute. Sorry, I was going to show you how to do the same thing borderless, but I'll do that in a minute just so we don't waste time. So what I want to create here is I want to have 2 3x4 side by side. Now, the thing that I really love about this is I see a lot of people printing one, like they'll print a one 3x4 like right here in the middle. And I don't like that as much because I feel like you're losing and you're wasting a lot of photo paper. So I like to print side by side. Now, the one thing to keep in mind when you're printing borderless is your printer is going to make this photo a little bit bigger, so it makes sure that it's got photo that goes all the way off the edge. So you are going to lose a little bit of the image. So if there's an image, and I don't have anything, usually it only affects me when it's like someone's face or something that's kind of being cut off. You need to keep that in mind, that on a borderless print, it's going to go all the way to the edge. So that is just something to keep in mind when you're setting up these prints. So what I want to do is I want 2 3x4s. So I'm going to come over here, keep my margins at 0 because I want this to be borderless. I want 1 row because I just want 2 side by side, and then I want 2 columns. So now I have 2 photos, and you can see on my cell size it's 2 3x4 photos. And the reason is because obviously this is a 4x6, and so with the 4x6 you cut that in half, you get 2 3x4. So if I was using obviously if I was using like a 5x6 photo paper, let me just go here and change this to a 5x7 is what I meant. You can see that when I only do 1 row and 2 columns, it's creating this 3.5x4. So if I was doing that, what I would need to do is come in here and just click 3 and then just hit enter. And now I've got 2 3x4 photos on a 5x7 photo paper. And if I wanted to get rid of this margin here in the center so I have less to cut, oh, I don't want to do that because I'm moving this. Then I'm going to come to my right and left, and I'm just going to move these in right and left. So you can get them to touch if you want, or, you know, I like to get them to touch so that I can just do 1 cut. But some people like to make their photos a little bit bigger so that they kind of have a little bit of a bleed, and that's totally fine. I don't think you need to do that with Project Life because you have usually I feel like you have to cut down the photos just a little bit more anyway, because they're not exactly, the pockets aren't exactly a 3x4. So let's go back to page setup. I want to go back to the 4x6. And one thing that I did want to show you is when I created this, let me just move this back to 3 here. Oh, I need to change my margins. That was the problem. So what happened in this photo, you can see that the photo turned sideways here. So I like to, usually is what I want is I want to have, when I do, when I have a landscape 4x6, I want 2 3x4s that are portrait pictures. So what's happened is Lightroom is it's rotating the image because it thinks that I want to get as much as the image in this 3x4 spot as possible. And sometimes I do want that because sometimes I'll end up making it into like a 3x3. Sometimes I don't want that. So if I don't want that, I'm going to come up here to this image setting and see how it says rotate to fit. And I mentioned this before, I usually do not use rotate to fit. I'm going to uncheck that. And now you can see that these photos have now gone portrait. So I'm getting it, this view. And the other thing that I really love about Lightroom, which I think is a little bit harder to do in Photoshop, or it just takes more time, is I can move this photo around and get it to exactly how I want it in this image space. And let's say this is exactly how I want it there. And then I come over to this image, click on it, and then I fit this into the space exactly how I want it here. And I've got my photo. Now I can just keep going down the line and moving the photos in the places that I want. So you can just go ahead and do that. If you've got several photos here in this film strip and you only want to highlight 2, you can come over, click on this where it says all film strip photos, and you can just do select, and then you can just click on the only two photos that you want to print. And I actually end up doing that a lot based on what photos I have in the film strip here. So I'm just going to go back to all film strip photos so, you know, I can show you how we can add multiple photos in just a minute. So that's how you do the borderless 3x4s. So now I'm going to make a template of this. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to create a new template, and I'm going to put it in the AG folder, and I'm going to name this 4x6. Now you can name this however you want. This is just what makes sense to me. And I'm going to do 2 3x4 borderless. Okay, and then I'm going to hit create. So that way I know exactly what it is. If I want to go back to 4x6, I can, or I can come here to the borderless. Now I'm going to add border, and this is something I'm probably going to do a lot more in 2017, is have borders on my photos. So I definitely want to show you how I'm setting that up. So I'm going to keep the same printer, 4x6, come to properties, and then I'm going to click off borderless, and I'm going to hit OK. And you'll see that it automatically adds a border, and it automatically changes the margins, and it automatically changes my cell size here. So you can see now my photo is 3.76 inches by 2.88. So each photo is that way. If I come up to, well, I'm not going to change that because it was already that way. So if I want it to be just one 4x6, then I'll do it like this. And you can see that it's, what it's done here is it keeps with the exact same cell height as I had before. It just adjusts it. So if I want it to go all the way up to a 4x6, or in this case with the margins, it's only letting me have a cell size of 3.76 by 5.76. So keep that in mind. The photo on the inside is not going to be an exact 4x6, but obviously I'm sure you understood that when, you know, we were adding a border to it. So I'm just going to create this so you can see 4x6, and then I'm going to put border, and I'm going to hit create. So now I can go back from borderless to border really easy, and I don't have to go through all those settings again. So now what I want to do is let's go to the border, and we'll go to 2 columns because we want to do 2 3x4s. Now the problem with this print is if I printed it and I cut this down the middle, I don't have the white space here in the middle. So I need to try and match the outsides with the insides, right? So if this is 1/8 of an inch, then I want to put 1/8 of an inch on both sides. So basically that's 1/4 of an inch. So I want to come here to my horizontal. This is my cell spacing, and I'm just going to click here 0.25. So that is 1/4 of an inch. If you're using centimeters or millimeters, then, you know, you just obviously double the millimeters here and then add it in the middle. And so now when I print this off and I trim it down the middle, it'll be even on both sides. So that's how I do my 3x4s with my borders. And I definitely want to make a template of this because I'm probably going to be using this a lot in 2017. I think this is kind of the direction I want to go this year. Doesn't mean I have to do it every time, but I really liked it in December Daily. And I think I did it in my Amsterdam and Iceland weeks, and I really like that as well. So I'm going to do 4x6 again so I know what size it is. I'm going to hit 2 3x4s. 2 3x4. Whoops, sorry. And then I'll hit border. So I know that there's a white border all the way around. So now you can see that I can just go back and forth if I want to do borderless or if I want to do border. So you guys, it's this easy to create these prints, and then it's so easy to then set up these templates so you have them every single time that you go into Lightroom to print any of your photos for Project Life. So I really love it. Okay, so now let's do something different. Let's do let's do 6 photos on one 4x6. So that's going to create 6 2x2 inches photos. So this is what I did with December Daily. This is one of the things I did with December Daily. So we want to, I'm just going to leave the margins and everything just fine. I just want to work on the page grid. So I'm going to take my rows up to 2 because I want 2 rows, and then I want 3 columns. So now I'm getting 6 pictures. So keep in mind, I've got a border here. So if you want to have a border on your photos, you're going to want to adjust the vertical spacing here and the horizontal spacing here so that you can get, you know, and I don't know the math right away, but you want to be able to cut this in half. So I think this is probably going to have to be like, 1/4 of an inch in between each of them so that, you know, they'll equal the exact same here, here, and on this side. So that's what you would do if you wanted to have your 12 by, or excuse me, your, if you wanted to have a border around your photos that are going to be 2 inches. Right here, you can see that it's not exactly square. You could click on this to keep it square, and you can see that it made a really slight adjustment. So keep that in mind, that we want these to be 2 by 2s. So that's that you can see that really slight adjustment in the photo there. Okay, now this is not something I will probably do very often, so I'm not going to save it. But I want to actually do a borderless print here. So I'm going to come back up to my pages. Actually, I'll do this. Maybe this will be a little bit quicker. I'll do borderless. I'll do both of these. I'll just change this to 2. I'll change that to 3. And now I've got 6 2 by 2 inch squared photos. So now I can print this off, make sure that my settings are set to borderless, which they should be because I set it here. And then it'll print off this image, and then I can just cut down on the sides. I like to make as little cuts as possible. So that's why I always have, when I'm doing borderless, that's why I always have my photos touching. And it actually works out really great, especially because, like I said, usually not all the pockets are exactly 2 by 2. So some of them they're usually a little bit smaller. So it's okay to have a little bit of fudge room there. So that's how I create that. Now I'm going to, you know, this is probably something that I'll use again. So I'm going to hit my template, and I'm going to do a 4 by 6 dash 6 2 by 2. And I'll just hit create. So I can go back here to here to here, and you can see that I can just change them depending on my needs. Now let's say that you didn't want to print on a 4 by 6, but you wanted to do a bunch of 2 by 2s like on an 8 by 10 or something. I'm going to come up here to page setting, go to 8 by 10. Let's make this landscape. And you can see that I have my 3 rows and my 2 columns. So I can continue to create rows and columns if I want. Now I don't have enough photos to show you, but what I could do is I can come up to this and say repeat 1 photo per page so we can see what it looks like. And because I want these to be 2 by 2, I'm going to hit keep square, and you can see that it made it square here. And then I will just kind of create rows. And that might be, I need to make this a 2 again. That might be the best that I can do. Let me see if I can do 1 more row. Wait, no, I mean column. Because I should be able to do, right? I should be an 8 by 10. I should be able to get a 4 by 5. So I should be able to do this. There we go. Duh, I'm trying to do the math. So one of the things that's happening here is I've got borders, right? So let's go up to page settings and properties, and well, see how I'm on a printer that actually doesn't print an 8.5 by 10. So I'm going to go in and change my printer. I'm just going to cancel that. I'm going to change this to the Artisan. And now I can change it. It has borders right here. And the reason why it's borders and this is grayed out is because it's plain paper. So if I change this to like premium photo paper, which is what I have now, you can see that that option is available. And it's just telling me that the top and the bottom might smear a little bit, and it makes it a little bit bigger. So it's just kind of, you know, allowing me to, it's helping me to understand that there are, you know, some things that can happen when printing borderless. I really haven't had an issue with that before. Now I'm just going to come down and make all these zeros, and now you can see these are all showing here, my cell size is all 2x2. Now, if I'm using, and this might be a little overkill for you guys, but if I'm doing like a 5x7, you can see that now I've gone down to 1 inch because I've got 5 rows by 4. So if I think about it, I should be able to fit in, I really want these to be 2x2, and it's not letting me because I need to change my columns here. But this is probably the best I'm going to get because obviously I can do 6x4. So with a 5x7, I'm only going to be able to get 6, 12 2x2s. But if that's the only photo paper I have, I can just, no, I don't want to change that. I always keep going for that. I can change my margins a little bit, move these in, get them closer, do the top and do the bottom. And so that way they're a little bit closer together. So you guys, this is how easy it is to set up your prints for Lightroom, and how easy it is to create templates so that you can do this every time. And look how easy it is to just move over these photos and be like, oh, this isn't working for me. And what is really awesome about this as well, like I could click on this first photo and say, you know what, this is too dark. So I can come over to the develop module and I can adjust this photo to my liking. So I want you to keep that in mind, that you can do so much in Lightroom on the print module that it's a little bit harder to do, I think, in Photoshop. That's just my personal opinion. So anyway, now you know how to do it in Lightroom. I'm going to move over to Photoshop and show you how I do it in Photoshop. Okay, you guys, so now I'm in Photoshop and I just grabbed over, these are 6 photos from my Amsterdam trip. This is like the first folder that pulled up. So I just decided to grab these 6 photos, and this is what we're going to use for the tutorial. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I need to create a 4x6 file. So I'm going to come up here to new, and I need to pull over this screen. And I want it to be a 4x6. So I'm going to click on 4x6. This is in inches. If you obviously millimeters, centimeters, whatever you're comfortable with, whatever measurement, use that. And I'm going to do landscape for my orientation. I want it to be 300 because I want to print this. And then I'm just going to hit create. And this is a 4x6 size. You can see over here, it says in my documents, 4x6. One of the things that is actually really nice, if I'm just doing a 4x6, and let's say this right here is a 4x6 showing me right here that it's already cropped to a 4x6. If I go ahead and print this, and my settings are, so if I hit Control P or Command P, if you're on a Mac, you can see that it's printing on an 8.5 by 11, but that's because I'm using this laser printer. So I'm going to come down here to the PM400. And I'm going to change the layout so that it's actually a 6x4, so that it's going to print this way. If I go to my print settings and I click off on the borderless and I hit OK, now you can see here it's created a border. So I don't actually have to create a border here. It's going to do it for me on my print. So I actually will do this if I'm just working with a 4x6, but if I do 3x4s and I want a border and I need something down the middle here, then I will not do that. So I just wanted you to keep that in mind, that when you change this option here, it's going to change how it actually prints here, you know, depending on, not exclusive to how it looks here, I guess is what I'm saying. So just keep that in mind. I'm gonna hit cancel because I don't want to print that. So let's come back over to our untitled document, and I want to create, let's do the 2 3x4s. Actually, what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over to the rectangle tool, and I'm going to click down, and it's going to let me create the rectangle I want. So I want to do this 3, and because you can see here, it's in pixels, and I could do the math if I wanted to and put it in pixels, but I could just do 3 inches and it will change it for me. So I'm going to do a 3x4, and I'm going to click OK. And you can see that it's created this 3x4 document here. Now I want to move it off to the side, and I want to make sure that I'm on this layer. And the one thing that I want to do, I want to make sure, okay, right here on my properties, if your properties aren't showing, come up to Windows and go down to Properties here. So in Properties, and I'm sorry guys, I'm using Photoshop CC. So some of these, your properties might be up here because that's where it used to be. That's where I was looking for it. I'm using the newest version, so now they've got this Properties tab. Just wanted you to be aware of that if you couldn't find it up here, or if it's not in Windows here, that might be because they'd never had a Properties before. You might be using an older version. So I think it should be up here in this toolbox if I'm correct. Like I said, I don't do this all the time in Photoshop, but the thing that I want to make sure of is that I do not have a stroke. I want to make sure there's no stroke on this, and there is no stroke, and I'm just going to leave it black for now. And then I'm going to make sure this layer is highlighted. I'm going to click or hold down Alt or Option if you're on a PC, and then I'm just going to drag over here. Okay, now it looks like it's one, but you can actually see here there's two. And to help me out, I'm going to click on the black and I'm just going to make it gray. So now you can see that I actually have two separate rectangles here. Now what I'm going to do, because I want to fill these with photos, is I'm going to click on this photo. I'm going to Control or Command A, and then I'm going to Control and Command C. So what I did is I selected all of it, and then I copied all of it. I'm going to come back over to my 4x6 document, and then I'm going to set it in to my document. So now you can see I have a layer of this photo. Or did I say I did Control or Command V to paste it into the document? You could also do this with right clicking, and I'll show you that in a minute. I'll do that option next. So I'm going to take this photo. I want this photo to be on the black. Here, I'll take off the photo, or I'll hide it. I want it to be on this black layer. So I'm going to move my photo right above this black layer. So all you can see is that. Now, this would be fine if I wasn't going to add another photo in, but because I'm going to add another photo in, I definitely I need to clip this into this rectangle. So while I'm on this layer of the photo, I'm going to come over here, and it's going to bring up this dialog box, and then I'm going to create clipping mask, or you could do Alt Control G. And now you can see this little arrow here. It's showing that this photo is clipped in. And now I can move this photo side by side, and that's where I want the photo to go. So that's how you can move it. Now I'm going to do that one more time, and you can see I've already how much time this has taken me. Okay, I can, when I'm done with this, obviously save this document so I don't have to create these rectangles every time. But you can see that I can't just easily go back and forth like I could in Lightroom from border to borderless, etc. So I just want you to keep that in mind. Now I'm going to choose a different photo. So we'll choose this one. This we'll do Control A or Command A. So then Command or Control C for copy. Then I'm going to Command or Control V to paste. So now I've pasted in. You can see that I've pasted it over top of that photo, and I'm just going to move it up. And now it's over top this rectangle, but it's also over top the entire image, or all of the layers. So I'm going to come back here because it's in the place that I want, because I want it right above this rectangle. Make sure it's highlighted, and then I'm going to do Create Clipping Mask, and you can see that it clipped in. Whoops, I'm sorry, I'm in the wrong tool. I'm going to Control D to get rid of that selection. You can see that now I can move this photo around because it's clipped in, and it's not going to interfere with this photo here. And you can see that it's clipped in by this little arrow down here in the layers palette. So I can move this to exactly how I want it, and then I can print this out. Okay. So that's how I would do 2 3x4s. Now we're going to manipulate this a little bit. I'm trying to decide if I should. I think what I should do is probably create a whole new document. So I'm going to do this one right here is a 4x6, and I can tell because it says 1800 by 1200, and 4x6 times 300, that's what you get. And it's in pixels, so I could change it here to inches, and it's telling me a 4:6, 300 resolution. Gonna hit create on there. So this is going to be my second document. Now I'm going to cheat a little bit. Actually, I'll show you how you can do it this way. So I'm going to set all my borders to 1/8 of an inch. Now, if you want to change your measurements to something different here, like to millimeters, you can do that, or to points, picas, pixels, whatever. I'm just going to, what I'm doing, if your rulers are not showing, do Command or Control R, and you can bring up your rulers. You want to drag from the ruler onto the photo, and you want to put it right at 1/8 of an inch. So I'm going to do 1/8 of an inch from the 1/8 of an inch from the bottom and all of the sides. Now what I want to do is I want to have one right in the center, and you can see that it kind of clicks right to the center there. And I didn't necessarily need to do that one, but I just did anyway. And then I want to make sure that it's 1/8 of an inch there and 1/8 of an inch there. So now that I've got these guides in place, now I'm going to bring my rectangle tool over, and instead of clicking in the center like I did before to put in the measurements, because I don't know what these measurements are, I'm going to come up here to the corner, and I'm going to come down here, and you can see that it's kind of clicking into place. And you can do that by hitting, let's see, I just let go of it, so it created that black. I wanted to, in Illustrator, I know it's Command or Control U, and so I'm not sure if that's what it is here. Snap, so maybe snap to guides. So I guess it's different than it is in Illustrator, but you can just come to View, snap to, and make sure guides is checked so that it will snap to the guides there. Now you can see that I created a rectangle, and in my document it will tell you my width and my height, and it's in pixels, but that doesn't matter because I don't need to really know that for this. Then I'm going to do the same thing I did before, make sure my rectangle is highlighted, and I'm going to hit on Alt, and you can see that it changes, this arrow changes to a double arrow. So I'm going to click on that, and I'm going to drag, and you'll see that it's going to copy it, and I'm just going to make sure that it's in place. And then I could just leave these black, and I think I'm just going to leave them black because they're not side by side, so I can see exactly where they're at. So now let's bring in my photos. Let's do two different photos. So I'm going to do Control A to highlight everything, and I'm going to do Control C to copy. Come back over. If you can't see your document here, I can't see my Untitled 2, I'm going to come to this arrow, and it's going to show me all of my documents here. So now I'm going to paste it in, and now it's pasted into my document. Just like I did before, I'm going to drag the photo right over the rectangle that I want, and then I'm going to come over here to create clipping mask, or you can do Alt Control G on a PC or Option Command G on a Mac. And now you can see that my photo's clipped in. So I can move the photo around exactly how I want. Now, if I want the photo to be a little bit bigger than this, I can hit, I'm going to hit Control or Command minus. So it's going to make this a little bit smaller. So I wanted to show you, you can see, look right here, you can see how I've got, it's showing me how big my photo is right there with the purple markings. You can see that. If I hit Command T, it's going to give me this box that's around my photo, and I'm going to hit a Shift, and you can see that I can change the size of my photo. So let's say I wanted to highlight the tops of the buildings. I could do that. I could make the photo a lot bigger, and it's still going to clip right in there. But let's say, actually, instead of making it bigger, I wanted to make it exactly the size of the height of this rectangle. So let's make it just slightly bigger to make sure we're hanging over, and then I'm going to hit enter, or you can come up here and hit this check, which is going to apply it. So now I've got the photo exactly the way I want it in this rectangle. So now I can do the exact same with another photo, and I'll just do that for you. I'll click on this. I'll do Control A, Control C to copy, come over to my document, Control V to paste. And you can see that it pasted right above this layer. So we're going to put it above this rectangle where we want it to go. Come up, create clipping mask, and now it's clipped into this. So like I said to you guys, you can see how many steps I've had to do and how easy it was to just add my photos in Lightroom. So I just want to show you the difference there. So this is how you do 3x4 with the Borderless. With two 3x4 photos. So if I want to do the 6x6 one, let's do the same thing again. And I'm going to create a new document. I want it to be 4x6 like before. And I'm going to go ahead, and because I know the 4x6 and I want to do a borderless print, because I know that it needs to be 2 inches by 2 inches, I'm going to come over to the rectangle tool again. I'm going to click down, and I'm just going to hit 2 inches by 2 inches, and I'm going to hit OK, and it's going to create my rectangle here. And now I'm going to hit Alt and drag with my mouse. So click and drag, that's what I'm doing. I'm hitting Alt and then I'm clicking and dragging. And now I've got 3 side by side, and because you can see I've got all my 3 rectangles, and because I don't want to be confused, I'm going to click on each of them, and just for fun, I'm going to change all these to a bright color. And I'll use that first one black. So to do that again, instead of doing one at a time, I'm going to click, I'm going to click, and then I'm going to shift click on all of these rectangles. I'm going to do Alt again. I'm going to hold down Alt. I'm going to click and drag with my mouse. And then you can see that it copied it. Now I've got a copy here, and I'm just going to click on each rectangle, and again I'm going to make these different colors so I know where to put my photo. So you can do however you want. I just think it's easier to show that you know exactly where you need your photos to go, and that way, like when you're bringing in an image, you can say, okay, this is purple, or this is like magenta, and I want this photo in this area right here. So let's just start adding my photo. So Command or Control A, Command or Control C, come back to my document, and I'm adding this photo in. Now you can see this is a 4x6 photo. So I'm going to put this down. I want this to be where the black is. So I'm putting it over here. And now I'm going to do a clipping mask. So I'm going to come up to create clipping mask. And now it's clipped in. And you can't really tell that it's clipped in because it looked like it was clipped in already. But if you were trying to do all of these photos, you would be able to tell because you know the photos would be on top of one another. So I'm going to do Control minus because I want to back this out because you can see how big this photo is. So I'm going to do Command or Control T, and I'm going to hold down the shift while I change this. I know when you're using Photoshop Elements, you don't have to hold down the shift, which is actually really nice. I want to make sure my photo is a little bit smaller to go with the 2x2. So already you can see how many steps I've had to do just to get this one photo in there. I've had to change the size of the photo. You know, I've had to create all these squares. Now, yes, you do it once. You don't have to do it again with all the squares, but you do have to add in each individual photo. So let's go to the next one. Command or Control A, Command or Control C. Come back here to my document, Command or Control V. Now you can see because this photo isn't clipped in, you can see that it's taking over both of these spaces. So I'm going to make sure that the photo is over the yellow, and it is over my yellow. If it wasn't, you know, if I wanted it over the green, I would put it over the green, but let's do it over the yellow. Come up here to create clipping mask. And now it's clipped into this space. Now again, if I'm like, you know what, I want this photo a little bit smaller, I'm going to do Command or Control T. I'm going to make my photo a little bit smaller, and then I'm going to hit return, or I could come up here and do that. Now you're seeing right here, I'm going to come up a little bit closer. I've got this white space, and that's because this rectangle is not all the way to the top. It's kind of like pushed down a little bit. So I'm going to come up to the rectangle and I'm going to move it. I might have to get rid of the clipping mask. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to release the clipping mask, and let's see if I can move this rectangle. Hold on one sec. I'm going to come out. I'm going to move this out of the way so I can see my rectangle here. I'm going to click on the rectangle, and then I'm going to move my rectangle up. So you can see now there's a little bit of white space there. Now you can see there's a teeny bit here, but I think that's just a little bit of the discrepancy. Actually, I moved it down a little and then it went away. So let's grab that photo again. Click on this layer 2, and then don't want to do that. So I'm going to hit Control Z to undo that. I want to make sure I'm on that photo, and I'm going to move that photo. For some reason, it's not letting me do it because that pink's in the way. So we'll just have to move this back and hope that this is out of the way here. Okay, so now you can see I have no white marks. So now let's come back here and let's put the clipping mask in place. So the key with the clipping mask is you want to make sure that the photo is above the shape that you want to clip. You could do stars, you could do ovals, circles, you could do any shape that you wanted here and clip your photo into it. You could even do a text. If you've seen that, they're using the clipping mask. You just want to make sure your photo is above each of these. So already you can see how much time it's taken me to add all of these in. So if I wanted to do a border, then I'd have to come in, do more lines, or do more guides to help me figure out the size of each of the box that I wanted. So this is how you do it in Photoshop. And then what you would do is when you're done, I'm not going to continue. I feel like this is really, really long. This is probably a really long, close to an hour, and I really apologize for that. But I wanted to give you guys an in-depth tutorial on both of them and just really show you the difference. I'm going to pull the Lightroom back up, and I want to show you one thing that's different, or not one thing, but one of the main things that's different between the Photoshop and between Lightroom. Now that you've seen both of them, I want to show you how easy it is to move your photos around. So I've got my photos down here, and let's say I want to print this 4x6 out and slip this 4x6 into a pocket. So I want this to be the photo, and I've done that several times before. And when I do that, I like to put a border. So I'll just come up here and put 0.05 in the middle, and then I'll do 0.05 horizontal and vertically. And so I like to have a little bit of spacing in between. And let's say these are all kind of bluish, very similar colors, and I wanted to break that up. So what I could do is I could come down here to my film strip where my photos are. And if you can't see them, then you'll want to toggle on this triangle right down here so you can see your film strip. I'm going to click on this photo that I want to move, and then I'm just going to move it in the film strip to the side. So you can see how easy it is to move around. Now I could, and I probably will, let's see. I think I want that right there, and I kind of want this on the outside. Because I don't know, because of that white, it's feeling like I kind of want it on the outside. I kind of want this on the outside as well. So I'm just going to move that over. Now these are feeling too similar to me, these up and down. So I might want to maybe move it back. Sometimes that happens. And I much prefer... I think what I'll do, actually, maybe I'll move it like that. So when that ever happens, I much prefer, I don't want them to be stacked on top of each other. So I will definitely move them around. So you can see how I quickly was able to move these photos around. Now, if I tried to do this in Photoshop, I'd have to release the clipping mask, move the image on top of the layer, and then set the clipping mask again. So, you know, and you saw that I moved it and I did it, and then I realized, oh, I don't really like that so much there. And then I would have to change it again and change it again. So you can see how many more steps there are than in Photoshop than you would have just here, which is just literally moving these photos around. So you can see that I have 7 photos here. So there's one on that side. And if I don't like it, then I'll just move it back over. All right, you guys, before I finish with this tutorial, I forgot that I actually want to show you how to print in Lightroom. So I'm going to come down here where it says print job, and in print job, you can see here it says print to, and right now my setting is to a JPEG file. And if you come down here, you can see that it says print to file, and then this other print button is grayed out. So I will actually do this a lot when images that I want to add text to. So images that I know that I'm going to want to bring into Photoshop, what I'll do is I'll put them in a collage, and then I will just set it to a JPEG file, and then I'll print it to the file. So what happens when I click on that is it's going to ask me, you know, where I want to save this file. So then I'm just going to go through and figure out where I want to put this photo so that I remember, so I can go back to it and I can add it to Photoshop and put text on it or whatever I want to do, or I can print it out from there. So I'm going to click off that. If I actually want to print straight from my Lightroom, I'm going to come up here and I'm going to click printer. And now you can see that I've got printer and I've got print. If I hit print, it's just going to automatically hit print. It's just going to print this photo. If I hit printer, you can see that it's bringing up some options here. Same options that I had with page setup. So it's going to make sure that I'm doing the printer that I want, that I'm setting the properties. Right here, I could change border, borderless, whatever. I can change my photo that I'm going to be using and all that stuff. So I can change that if I want. I'm going to hit cancel, and then I would just hit OK, and then it would go ahead and print this photo. And in fact, it's going to print, you can see here this arrow, and if I click on the arrow, it's going to print all of these photos because I want the entire film strip to be printed. So it's going to print how many is that? 1, 2, 3. So 4. It's going to print 4 photo or 4x6 photos here with all of these photos on it. So keep that in mind. If you don't want all of these to print, what you can do is come down here to select photos, and then you can just select the photos that you want to print. And then you could send that to the printer, and then it's only going to print those 2 photos. So I hope that makes sense. That's how I do my printing. So I either will print it right from here if I don't want to add any text to it. If I want to add text to it, like in Photoshop, then I will do print to file, and then I will save. Then it basically just saves it as a JPEG image. So hopefully that was helpful. I realized when I was done completely filming that I didn't even show you how to do that. If I want to do that same thing in Photoshop, I would hit Command or Control P, or you could come up here to File and do the same thing. And I'm going to bring over the document box, which went into my other screen. And then I can go ahead and I can set it up here. I could set my printer and all that. And I'm going to change this to landscape because I want it to be landscape. And then I can just hit print. So I'm going to print it on there. I'm going to hit cancel because I definitely don't want to print this. But I just wanted to show you how you can print. And if you have Photoshop or Lightroom, you probably know how to do that. I just thought that I would let you guys be aware of that. So anyway, you guys, I really hope this tutorial was helpful for those of you who were looking for more information about printing your photos into a collage. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask me in the comment section below, and I will answer them the best that I can. Definitely not a guru, but I've used these programs for a long time. So I definitely know how to use them. Thanks so much for being here for the hour-long tutorial. I apologize for it being so long, but I definitely just wanted to be able to show you in depth how to create these collages. Anyway, you guys, thanks so much, and we will see you in the next video. Bye.